Hi everyone, it's Lauren and welcome to part 2 of my October wrap-up. Part 1 was all of the Man Booker shortlisted books that I read in the first half of October, so if you would like to go and watch that one, you can click here and go and see it. And this half is all about the non-Man Booker related stuff because I, after finishing all the long, arduous books, I was just like, short things, let's read all the short things. So I thought I'd split them into 2 videos. So the first book for this video is We Need New Names by NoViolet Bulawayo. I read this book on my Kindle and I had been reading it for a long time. I started reading it before the Man Booker stuff started up, and then I put it on hold so that I could read all of the long listed books, or as many of them as I could before the winner got announced. This is a very, very interestingly written book. You follow a young girl called Darling who is growing up in Africa, and then halfway through the book she immigrates to live with her aunt in the US. And so it's a very interesting book about Africa and about the West's view of Africa, and also what it's like to be an immigrant in the US, and kind of the juxtaposition between the two cultures. And the reason I say Africa is because I don't think we actually find out which country Darling is supposed to be in. It's quite allegorical in this book, so I don't want to, I'm not just saying Africa because I can't be bothered to think of the country. I don't think you ever find out what her country is. They say things like my country in our language a lot of the time. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was very poetic the way it was written. The chapters are very short and very concise. It follows her, Darling, playing with a lot of her friends in the place that she's from, and we see through the eyes of a child kind of the different political situations that are happening in her village. She's living in a kind of a shantytown, slummy part of the city. It's very interesting because it challenges the Western perceived view of African children, and they talk about like the NGO people that come over there to give them toys and take pictures of them and then go away. And I think this is a real trend. You get a lot of people that go on gap years to Africa and then take selfies with African orphans, and they're like, oh, look at me helping out Africa. And it's a very interesting comment on that. It's also interesting, the comment on the cultures when you go to America, experiencing racism and xenophobia, or just kind of cultural ignorance. And it's written very, very beautifully, and I think what it came across very well was also the feelings of wanting to get out and wanting to leave and get to the West, to get to Canada, to get to the US, but then once you're there, not being able to come back and sort of missing home and losing the identity that you had there, because you're sort of assimilating, she's assimilating American culture and trying to fit in over there. I think it was very well crafted. This was shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize a few years ago. I think it was the year that Eleanor Catton won, and it actually made me quite sad. Like, it made me annoyed that I hadn't been doing the Man Booker vlogger thing when this book was shortlisted, because I really loved it, and I would suggest everyone go and read it. I'm going to be scouting out for more books by her now because I just thought her writing was excellent. The next book that I read in October was All This Has Nothing to Do With Me by Sabolo. I featured this in a haul recently, and I thought it was going to be very, very interesting because the story of this book is about a woman who gets obsessed with a colleague, and it's about their relationship, but it's told in a very interesting way. You've got some of their belongings, different photos, texts, emails, and so the way it's structured is very interesting, very different, and I was really excited to read it. This has just been translated from French, and although parts of it were very clever, I felt some elements just edged too far into pretension for me, and I felt like it knew how clever it was, and that kind of annoyed me. And also it's very, very short, and it uses pictures and things like that, but I think it could have done with being longer. You also get part of our main character. It's sort of told from her perspective, but you also get some of her past, and you hear about her mother and her father, and I would have liked some more of that. I think I wanted a little bit more plot from it, to be honest. I mean, it is basically the story of a woman falling apart by her own hand, and she just almost destroys herself by involving herself in this relationship and getting very, very obsessed with this man and putting all of her faith in him. But by the end of it, I felt like it kind of went nowhere and sort of stopped quite abruptly. So it's a bit of a shame, and I just wanted a bit more that I never really got. I'm really staring at the camera. I wanted more. So a really interesting concept, and parts of it were pulled off very, very well, but not. I was a bit yeah, I was a bit on the fence by the end of it. The next book, guys, the next book is a comic. It's a graphic novel. A few weeks ago, like straight after the Man Booker stuff, it was the Books in My Bag week, and me and Jean and Santa did a little bit of a bookshop crawl around London. I say bookshop crawl, we went to like three bookstores. And I was basically asking them for recommendations for graphic novels because I've never read one. I was just like, tell me, what shall I do? And they gave me a load, so I'll feature them in a haul soon. But one of them I read straight away, which was Rat Queens, which has been around BookTube, and I got this one because it's a comic thing. I don't know if I'm using the right vocabulary, I'm sorry, I just don't understand comics. So I got this one, and I got some other ones which are more artistic and more graphic novel-y, and this one is a bit more comic-y. So I read this one just because I really, it was obviously a very, very quick read, and after reading A Brief History of 7 Killings, I was just like, something I don't have to think about too much. And yeah, I liked it. I think I'm going to get the next, I think I might get volume 2. I thought it was very interesting. As someone who doesn't read comics and this kind of thing a lot, I don't have anything to really compare it to, but I did think it was funny. I thought the art was very, very good, and I liked how the 4 women were just kind of awful. They were just complete liabilities, and it just made me laugh. So I do think this is good. You know, don't come to me for a graphic novel or comic recommendation because I don't know. I don't know if it's better than other ones, but I think I'll give it a go. I think I'll buy the next one and see how I get on with it. It's just a shame that they're over so quickly, because this is obviously five episodes, and yeah, you read them so quickly. But it's nice. I'm enjoying my foray into the graphic novel culture so far. And then the final book I read this month was probably I think this probably was my favourite of the whole month actually, and that was Girl Meets Boy by Ali Smith. I read this a few days ago, and I just read it in pretty much one sitting. In a couple of hours I just read it. This is part of the Canongate Myths series, where modern authors take myths and legends and fairy tales and rework them however they so choose. And Ali Smith has done Ovid's Metamorphoses, which is about a girl who is brought up as a boy, falls in love with the girl, and then they go to get married, and it's kind of awkward because she's actually not a boy. Everyone thinks she's a boy, and in the end she is transformed into a boy, and they can get married, happy ending, good stuff. Ali Smith brings this into a modern day setting, so you have 2 sisters, one of whom falls in love with another girl, and her sister's kind of not really coping with it, not really understanding it, and she's not really understanding it herself, and it's just about them sort of coming together at the end of it, and finding happiness and finding that balance in their lives. And it's just written so beautifully, as all of Ali Smith's work is, and the way it plays with language, the way it plays with gender and sexuality, I just thought was completely wonderful, and I was just so absorbed and couldn't stop reading. I think I want to read it again, because I think I didn't even get the beauty of her words the first time around because I was reading it so quickly, so I might read it again. This was like a warm-up because I'm going to she's got a new book of short stories coming out, which we're going to the book launch for next week, so I wanted to read this kind of beforehand, just to get back into her writing a little bit before I go and see her. So just a lovely, really, really lovely end to the month, and I'm so pleased I read this. So there we go, that's all the books that I read in October. I had quite an eclectic second half of the month. I think it's because I was just like, wow, I can read what I want now. Let's just take all of them off the shelves and read different things. So it was fun. It was really nice to get some ones read that I've been wanting to read for a long time, but I have felt under pressure to read as many of the Man Booker books as I want. Not that that's a bad thing, I enjoyed reading them, but it's really nice having agency back again and just being able to read anything that I like. So let me know if you've read any of these books. I would be particularly interested if you've read Rat Queens or any other kind of comics and how you think they compare, because I'm just really looking forward to expanding my literature knowledge a little bit. I don't want to be too narrow. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye bye! When we went to the ceremony for the announcement of the winner, I was only halfway through this book at that point, but even then I was just like, this has to win. But halfway through, having read the other 5, I would have been